guy thought I was a cop right away, so he shuffled across the street right up.
For decades, Nick Nolte has been one of Hollywood's most unforgettable faces, both on screen and off. Rugged, raw, unpredictable, and impossibly magnetic, he wasn't the polished Hollywood leading man. He was the storm. Wild hair, gravel voice, eyes full of history and soul. But where some stars sought perfection, Nolte embraced truth. The flaws, the pain, the rebellion, it all lived in him, and audiences felt every ounce of it. So when whispers spread that a new mugshot of Nick Nolte had surfaced, jaws tightened. Was this another fall? Another spiral? Another reminder of a Hollywood icon losing the fight against time and demons? But then the truth emerged, and it stunned everyone. This wasn't a scandal. It wasn't reckless chaos or the echo of a troubled past. No. This was something deeper, more human, and more heartbreaking. Because the man in that photo wasn't a fallen star. He was a survivor, a fighter, a soul weathered by life, not reckless choices. The mugshot wasn't issued in disgrace. It was evidence of a chapter few knew existed. A chapter that didn't break him, but revealed him. At 83, Nick Nolte has outlived the gossip, the headlines, and the Hollywood machine that once tried to define him. And now, as people stare at this latest image, aged, tender, honest, they aren't asking, what did he do? Instead, they're asking, what happened to him? And the answer? It just might change how you see him forever. Long before any photo ever went viral, long before the headlines and whispers, Nick Nolte was already a legend in motion, a man carved out of grit, instinct, and raw emotion. He wasn't born into Hollywood royalty. He clawed his way into its spotlight with rebellion in his blood and truth in his eyes. Growing up in Omaha, he wasn't the polished gentleman you see in glossy magazines. He was scrappy, intense, and more fascinated with life than rules. Coaches saw a future athlete. Teachers saw a restless spirit. But Nick, he saw a world bigger than school walls and suburban expectation. As a young man, acting didn't come to him as a gentle calling. It crashed into him like a wave. He wasn't trained to pose, smile, or charm like most aspiring stars. He didn't perform emotions. He lived them. Directors didn't just admire him. They feared and worshipped his commitment. When he stepped into a role, he disappeared into it. When he delivered a scene, audiences didn't watch. They felt. And in a Hollywood built on illusion, Nolte brought raw authenticity. Then came rich man, poor man. Overnight, the outsider who never cared about fitting in became a household name. It wasn't luck. It wasn't hype. It was inevitability, because Nick Nolte didn't need to become a star. He already was one. Hollywood just had to catch up. Success came fast, and so did the persona. The wild hair, the fierce stare, the gravel voice that sounded like it had lived 3 lifetimes. They weren't crafted. They were born of a life lived without compromise. He was beautiful in a way only truth can be. Flawed, furious, tender, dangerous. Directors wanted him. Studios feared him. Fans adored him. And Nick? He kept moving, burning through roles like a man trying to outrun something only he could see. But here's the thing about fire. It lights up everything, and it consumes. Behind the scenes, the same passion that made him unstoppable also made him vulnerable. Hollywood applause is loud, but silence at home can be louder. Fame lifts, but it also isolates. For every triumphant premiere, there were nights alone. For every glowing performance, there were personal battles no camera captured. Still, Nick refused to soften. When films like 48 Hers, Down and Out in Beverly Hills and The Prince of Tides hit screens, his legend grew. He became the flawed hero America loved. Rough edges, bruised heart, unpredictable soul. He wasn't the Hollywood fantasy. He was reality, intense, imperfect, unforgettable. And yet, even as his star soared, shadows gathered quietly. Pressure, expectations, a world that worships brilliance but offers little mercy for the human beneath it. Hollywood applauds a warrior on screen. But what happens when life demands the same fight off camera? It wasn't scandal that shaped Nick Nolte. It was humanity, pain, survival, the struggle to stay whole in a world that consumes its brightest souls. And long before the world would ever see another mugshot, long before headlines tried to twist his story again, Nick was already living through battles deeper than public judgment. the wild child, the rebel, the actor who refused to fake a single moment. He had begun a journey no script could prepare him for. A journey from rising star to reckless myth and eventually to a man learning to reclaim himself, piece by piece. Because legends aren't born from perfection. They're born from the wars they survive. Fame has a shine to it, a glow that blinds those who chase it and burns those who hold it too long. For Nick Nolte, it wasn't the red carpets or applause that intoxicated him. It was the emotional current that flowed through his life, intensity, vulnerability, and a hunger to feel everything fully. But when you live at full volume for too long, the world eventually demands a cost. Hollywood had given him power, roles, respect, yet it also fed the chaos brewing inside him. Nick was never good at pretending life was easy. He didn't bury pain beneath charm. He didn't hide the cracks. He wore them, battled them, fed them unintentionally with late nights, restless spirits, and coping mechanisms that didn't cope for long. In his prime, he was the brilliant Storm, the actor who could look broken on screen because he had seen the edge in real life. And then, years later came the mugshot the world wouldn't forget, the one with the wild hair, the Hawaiian shirt, and a pain that tabloids mislabeled as comedy. People laughed, memes spread, late-night hosts cracked jokes. But those who knew him, truly knew him, didn't see humor. They saw a man in need. A man fighting battles hidden behind a lifetime of intensity. That moment wasn't a meme. It was a mirror, a reflection of a soul wrestling with strain, fatigue, and a life lived without pause. Nick didn't hide from it. He didn't vanish. He didn't pretend. He confronted it head-on. The addiction struggle, the emotional toll, the years where strength wavered. He turned toward healing, toward honesty, toward rebuilding. His recovery wasn't glamorous. It was real. Slow mornings, difficult truths, apologies spoken quietly, and strength earned one sober breath at a time. That kind of redemption doesn't make headlines, but it changes lives. Through treatment, faith in himself returned. A gentleness emerged beneath the legendary roughness. The same man who once burned too brightly began learning how to glow instead, softer, steadier. Friends noticed. Family noticed. Hollywood, always eager to sensationalize downfall, fell silent as a man chose life over myth. Nick Nolte didn't collapse under his demons. He wrestled them and stood back up, scarred but standing. He aged not like a fallen star, but like a warrior who had survived the battlefield of fame and human frailty. His voice grew softer but truer, his steps slower but sure. His heart, once tangled in intensity, settled into something wiser. Acceptance. Years passed. Roles became fewer, moments more intimate, not because he was forgotten, but because he chose peace. The world moved fast. Nick moved intentionally. At 83, he isn't chasing spotlight or applause. He is chasing meaning. In family dinners, quiet walks, simple mornings, and a life lived honestly rather than loudly. So when a new mugshot rumor surfaced, people braced for chaos. But what they found wasn't a scandal at all. It was a medical record photo, routine, procedural, and profoundly human. Not a fall, but proof of age, vulnerability, and a life carried into its later chapters with dignity. The world expected shock. Instead, it received truth, because the real story isn't a mugshot. The real story is a man who faced himself and didn't run. Nick Nolte wasn't destroyed by Hollywood. He survived it, and sometimes survival is the greatest legend of all. When whispers surged online about a new Nick Nolte mugshot, the entertainment world froze. Fans panicked, tabloids sharpened their headlines, and social media braced itself for yet another Hollywood downfall. After all, many still remember that 2002 photo, hair wild, eyes lost, a man consumed by struggle. It became one of the most infamous images in celebrity history, a single moment that overshadowed decades of brilliance. But this time, the assumptions were wrong. The image that leaked wasn't taken in a police station. There were no flashing lights, no handcuffs, no scandal. The truth? It was a quiet photograph, captured during a routine health visit, meant to stay private. A simple moment, never meant for the world to see. Yet in that still frame, Nick Nolte looked fragile, tired, human. Not the fierce storm of energy the world once knew, but a man weathered by years, illness, and the heavy weight of being remembered only for his fall, and that, more than anything, shook people to their core. Because this wasn't a relapse. This wasn't a headline-grabbing mistake, it was aging. It was vulnerability. It was life. For decades, Nolte wasn't just an actor, he was a force. Grit carved into his face, thunder in his voice, emotion that cut straight through the screen. From the Prince of Tides to Warrior, he gave Hollywood raw truth, flawed, bruised, beautiful humanity. But now the shock wasn't what he'd done. It was realizing time had finally caught Hollywood's wild lion. In the end, the world always judges too quickly. It loves the rise, obsesses over the fall, and only later, sometimes too late, does it realize the story was never about either. It was about survival. Nick Nolte's life is not a headline. It's a roadmap of scars and second chances. By the time this newest image made its rounds, he wasn't shocked. Just disappointed, not in the public, but in the way fame forgets that its icons are flesh and bone. Friends say Nick spends most mornings on his porch, facing the ocean, letting the tide speak louder than the world ever did. He reads, he breathes, he listens. There are days when the aches in his joints slow him down, when time reminds him it's undefeated. But there is peace now, a peace he fought harder for than any role he ever played. And he won it, quietly, without applause, without cameras. For decades, he carried the weight of brilliance and burden in equal measure. His battle with addiction nearly took him, not just physically, but spiritually. Hollywood didn't offer sympathy back then. It offered spotlights and whispers. Yet Nolte rose. He rehabilitated his body, rebuilt his dignity, and reclaimed his purpose. Not to prove anything to critics, but to prove something to himself, that a man is not defined by his lowest frame. Today, Nick Nolte does not chase the industry. He is not desperate for its approval, nor bitter for its absence. He lives at the edge of Malibu in a home filled with memories, laughter, and the echoes of lines once shouted on set. There are photos of friends who are gone now, scripts with hand-scribbled notes, and shelves lined with awards he never asked for. Near them sits something far more valuable, drawings from his children now grown, who stood by him when headlines didn't. And that new mugshot? It revealed a simple truth. He isn't the wild-eyed rebel anymore. He's an older man, weathered yet grounded. A soul who battled demons and didn't lose, even if the world thought he did. This isn't tragedy. It's transformation. Hollywood crowns legends, then discards them. But Nick Nolte broke that cycle by stepping out of the spotlight before it swallowed him. He traded red carpets for dirt paths, premieres for sunsets, and chaos for quiet. His greatest role wasn't on a screen. It was choosing life when the world only saw a caricature of disaster. And if you look at him today, truly look past the lines and gray hair, you'll see something unexpected. Gratitude. For survival. For fatherhood. For still being here. Some stories don't end with a standing ovation. Some end with a man sitting peacefully, hearing waves crash, grateful he still has the strength to stand when he needs to, and the wisdom to sit when he doesn't. Nick Nolte doesn't need redemption from Hollywood. Hollywood needs redemption for how it treated him. The world saw a mugshot. Those who know him see a man who lived fiercely, painfully, honestly. And when the lights fade and the noise dies, what remains isn't scandal, it's humanity. It's endurance. It's Nick Nolte, not broken, simply older, and finally free.